So I'll start the presentation with this, quote by George Bernard Shaw, that we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. So the agenda for today is gamification as a marketing strategy in metaverse. So we'll look at the various facets of gamification. What is gamification? A few examples of gamification and the market size for gamification. In the next part, we will look at the gamification framework and the self-determination theory along with the gamification flow. The next piece, we will look at a few gamification elements and a design framework for gamification. And the last part, we will look at the gamification around us and in terms of the various examples and a few future trends and pitfalls for this. Plus, there is also a bonus level. So there is a prize for you at the end of this session. With the combined with yesterday, if you guys are able to give some few correct answers, we can probably look forward to that. Sure. We'll start. So, what is gamification? So, this is the textual or bookish definition of gamification, which is the process of using game thinking and game mechanics to solve problems and engage audience in non-game context. So, in a simple man's language, it is about making a simple mundane task into a game so that the user actually enjoys it while the task is also being done. So, in a simple language, this is what I think the pictures were 1,000 words. So, if you look at this, the kid is trying to turn his book into a game so that he learning becomes fun for him. I think we can start with a very simple example. I think most of us would have can recognize what is this table. Can somebody tell me what is this table? Anybody? What is this table? I think most of you would be aware what is this table about.
It's a periodic table.
Yeah, it's the periodic table. I think a lot of us have had a lot of hard time in terms of remembering the different the groups and periods. And in the chemistry paper, you would have had questions that please provide properties of group 2 or period 12, so that you have to provide the elements and their corresponding properties. But I think a lot of us used something called as mnemonics, right? So we will try and try group 2 and probably period 13 and uh, group sorry period 2 and group 13. We'll try and remember this. So it is lithium, beryllium, barium, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluoride and neon. As whereas for it is for the groups, it is uh, barium, aluminium, gallium, indium, thallium and nillium. Just have a look, and probably some of you would like to try on the next screen. So I guess most of us would struggle to learn this, the elements of period. So for that, there is a simple gamification method which is called as mnemonics, right? So remember this mnemonic for period 2. Little Betty became Charlie's number one friend and neighbor. So it automatically tells you lithium, beryllium, barium, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluoride, and neon. So this makes a very complicated task of remembering these elements in a particular order in a very simple manner. All you need to do is now remember that for period 2, this is the mnemonics. Similarly, for group 14, chemistry sir gives Sankey problems. So it tells you carbon, silicon, germanium, stannum, which is lead, and which is tin, and Pb, which is plumbum. So this is a very simple example of a gamification which we used to do as kids for remembering of mnemonic tasks. So here's a simple objective for gamification. So this is the task for you. You have a number pad in front of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are the tasks in the order of in the sequence which need to be performed. Can somebody come up with some kind of a example or some kind of a thought process? How can we gamify this task? I guess most of us would ask that you want some kind of a payment to complete this task. Would somebody like to take a guess? How can we gamify this?
Can anyone tell it?
Anyone?
Anyone from the audience? Wasim sir, Radhakrishna sir, Nitya ma'am, anyone from your center? Vellalar College of Engineering and Technology.
Fine, not a problem. Let's look at this, how can we actually gamify this task. Now remember, most of us, you would, if I were to give this mundane task to you, you would ask for some kind of payment, that why do we have to press this button for 5 seconds and press button 6 for 1 second and so on and so forth, right? Now how about we go about turning this task into a gamification? So what we do is, first we obviously would like to tag this as task. We turn this around and change. Next, we change the sequence of buttons into a particular format, okay, in a particular manner. Then we give it a paint job, a very nice paint job with some red and blue, red and black colors, and we change the screen into a game. Now think about this. Now please note that the exact sequence is what is required to clear Super Mario Bros. Round 1 for this game. Now the question to be asked is, how much payment would you make to play this game? The task being completed is absolutely the same. Okay, you have to push button 3 for 5 seconds, push button 6 for 1 second, but that is what gamification is about. It is about turning a mundane job, a mundane task, into a gamification, into a game, so that the player, the participant feels that he's actually playing a game while the task is also being done. So let's look at the gamification market by region now. I think most of the cases, North America obviously is one of the biggest regions, but now the other regions such as Europe, APAC, and MEA and Latin America all are catching up, and it is expected to be a $30 billion market by the end of 2025. So it's a pretty huge market which is growing at a compounded rate of 27%. And North America obviously has the largest share due to high penetration of smartphones, but India is now fast catching up with the growth of smartphones. So moving forward, let's look at the gamification market by industry segment. I think retail is again similar to the overall metaverse. Retail is here is the top adopter for gamified solutions, holding a 28% market share, followed by the different sector. Education follows closely, then the FSI sector, and the across sectors. Training and learning are key verticals where gamification is being aggressively adopted in order to solve multiple problems. So gamification impact, if you look at it, 80% of the US workers who believe that game-based learning is more engaging as compared to normal processes. It leads to 60% increase in employee engagement and 50% improvement in productivity because of gamification training features. And 50% of businesses have transformation programs have been failed due to poor employee engagement can be probably be solved by gamification. In gamification in operations, if you look at it, for employees who are aged 45 plus agree that gamification would improve work, and employees who agree that it would, 87% of the employees agree that it would make them more productive, while 85% enjoy gamification software solutions at work. 50% of the startups who are reportedly integrating gamification into their strategy. So you can see that gamification has a huge impact, and it is being deployed across all sectors, across all verticals, in multiple domains. So 90% of employees are more productive when they use gamification. 70% almost of the workers are likely to stay at a company when the tasks are gamified because it helps them stay engaged rather than going on doing mundane tasks. 72% of people believe that gamification inspires them to work harder, and 95% of the employees enjoy using gamified systems. Look, now looking at the impact in social media. Websites, almost 30% of our websites with gamification experience a increase in site actions. Almost 30%, 13% increase in gamification commenting. The gamification leads to increase in commenting. 22% increase in sharing due to gamification of different tasks in social sites, whereas almost 70% amplification in content discovery, leading to increase of activity feed engagement. So this presents us various use cases which we can look at gamification going forward. Now that we have looked at what is gamification and a few couple of examples of gamification, let's look at gamification framework and the self-determination theory which forms the basis of gamification. How to do gamification? I think there are a lot of courses, a lot of websites which tells us to do gamification by the PBL theory, which is point, badges, and leaderboard, which is the most popular framework which is used today to describe the gamification theory. But it is not actually the core way of correct way of doing gamification. The problem with gamification in this approach is mostly you give a challenge, which leads to a win condition, which leads to rewards, and which leads to certain kinds of leaderboards. And if you cross certain X points level, then you give some badges, and you can share those badges on your social network and status. But is this true gamification? I don't think so. We'll look at a proper gamification framework rather than the standard PBL framework. So good gamification does not start with game elements. It starts with our core drives. What are core drives? Is presenting an Octalysis framework by Mr. Yu Kai Cho, who is being claimed as the god for gamification by some of the experts. So there are 8 drives in this core in this Octalysis framework. We'll look at them, each of them by one by one. The first one is epic meaning. Epic meaning, what does it imply? It basically implies that for any task, you have to give a purpose to the task so that the user is able to associate himself or herself. You have to give that only you can save the world. That is how you make heroes out of people and they get associated with the task. You can use different kind of technologies, different kind of frameworks such as beginner's luck to simulate meaning. You can use luck to make users believe that they are the lucky one to get that amazing sword at the very beginning of the game, which will help them do different kind of tasks. So here, the important the aspect in meaning is establishing meaning is to identify so that the user get associated with the actual game being played and not the task behind it. So let's look at one example of the core drive of purpose and meaning. Here, the challenge was that a lot of kids who are undergoing cancer treatment, they had to provide a lot of information, but providing information, collecting information from cancer kids was a very painful task, and it was to be filled in a very mundane task. So the treatment institute employed a gamification framework. And how did they go about solving the
This is the
problem?
hospital for sick children in Toronto. Within these walls, every single year, thousands of children are battling cancer and are having to undergo terribly painful treatments. Children like Olivia, who 8 months ago was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. The hospital is continually trying to minimize this pain, but to do it, they must first understand it better, and most importantly, discover the medications that are working best. To do this, they need these young patients to record exactly how they're feeling in a pain journal. The challenge is that after multiple chemotherapy and radiation treatments, many kids are too tired or discouraged to even hold a pen, much less keep a detailed journal. And the sad reality is that if this data is not collected daily, it's useless. We needed to find a creative solution to collect data every single day, and with the Pain Squad mobile app, that's just what we did. To begin, our patients were enlisted as recruits in Pain Squad, a special police force dedicated to hunting down pain. We gave each recruit an Apple iPhone loaded with the Pain Squad mobile app. Then twice a day, an alert from headquarters told patients it was time to complete their pain reporting mission. Because the reports worked with iPhone's user-friendly touchscreen, kids could easily fill them out. With a simple flick of the finger, they could identify exactly where and how much it hurt, as well as which medications were working best. But making it easy was, well, the easy part. We knew to be truly successful, we needed to find a way to encourage our young target daily. So we called in some police reinforcements.
Hey, Rookie. Welcome to Pain Squad. It's really great you're here. We need all the help we can get to help put pain in its place.
We brought together the casts of Canada's top police dramas, Flashpoint and Rookie Blue, and filmed a series of inspiring videos, then deployed them throughout the app. To encourage the kids to fill in their reports, we built in a graduation structure. When a recruit completed 3 reports in a row, they received a message from HQ informing them that they were moving up the ranks.
You are now officially a full-fledged detective in Pain Squad. Well done. At this rate, you might even be the next chief.
Don't stop now. You're almost there.
You truly are one of Pain Squad's best and brightest. Keep it up.
Back inside the precinct, recruits could check to see when to fill out their reports and how many badges they had earned. And once their last report was filed, they were sent one final message informing them that they were being retired from the field.
But this case isn't closed yet. Your squad is still fighting. We couldn't have done it without you. So way to go.
The app is an excellent tool. That's her control over the pain because she's able to document it herself, but she's using an app. She just glides right through it, and it makes her feel that she's a part of this. It's fantastic that you all were able to come up with this. It really helps.
Just got the word from Chief. Turns out you've been doing so great,
He feels like you're ready to move up. You're well on your way to putting pain in its place. Don't stop now. You're almost there.
Congratulations. Sergeant.
So, so if you look at it, the key success factors in this case were the simple UI design for kids and the TV actors of police dramas for inspiring of kids, which helped the kids find the meaning in the task, which also the graduation structure for kids as per activities. So the core drive of purpose and meaning was used to turn a very challenging task of engaging kids undergoing cancer treatment into a very successful campaign for collecting of information. So the next core drive that we look at is empowerment. This is achieved by enabling the mastery by leveling up of different levels in the game. The desire to improve is the core drive, which is the core ambition from the different users which is engaged in this case. You express creativity, ask the users to creativity, see the results, receive feedback, and respond on this case. So one of the key use cases in this which has been used is the Nike Run app. In this case, the users are given the task of achieving different kind of levels in which they go out and achieve different kind of runs and different kind of marathons and record their continuous their results in the app. This helps them get Nike has achieved more than 10,000 users on the app within a very short time. The next code right that we look at is the social influence. This is where you compete and be better than your peers. This is you can use different facets of this code right, which is such as mentorship, even envy and competition to influence the users to compete in this drive. Let's look at one very good example by O-Power in Canada, where they used neighbors to help save electricity. The challenge was to encourage people to use the less energy and challenge the existing norm. How did they go about solving this problem?
On the hottest days in the summer, utilities deployed demand response programs to ensure grid reliability and lower costs for customers. However, utilities have struggled to engage customers in demand response programs. In fact, only 5% of U.S. households currently take part in their utility programs. To increase engagement, O-Power is introducing a new behavioral demand response platform, a solution that enables utilities to engage all of their customers just by using smart meters, big data analytics, and personalized communications. Meet Ben and Elizabeth. They've recently joined their utilities Peak Rewards program. At the beginning of the season, Ben receives a welcome package, introducing him to the program and recommending small changes his family could make. Before a Peak event, Ben and Elizabeth receive messages from their utility through their favorite channel. Elizabeth likes email, while Ben prefers text messages. They can even choose to be notified over the phone. By making small changes, like turning up their thermostat to 3 degrees, delaying laundry, or running the dishwasher after the event, Ben and Elizabeth can benefit themselves and their utility. After the Peak event, Ben and Elizabeth are provided with personalized information about how they performed, how they stack up, and how they can improve their performance on future events. Elizabeth is so excited about her savings that she shares on social networks. After a few events, they receive a personalized report in the mail. Ben and Elizabeth discuss their results and how they can continue to save energy when the grid needs it most. This scenario is one of many opportunities utilities have to leverage O-Power's behavioral demand response platform as a foundation for their new and existing demand response programs.
So if you look at it, just imagine by this simple program, the O-Power was able to save over $120 million in utility bill savings and over 1 terawatt of energy savings. The key success factors was to show comparison with neighbors, to induce small changes at a time, and messages per preferences, whereas along with constant feedback on performance. This enabled, along with the core drive of social influence, for the users to go about making small changes in their daily life in order to save more electricity. The fourth code right that we look at is unpredictability. I think most of us would be very familiar with this. It is the fun of the unknown. on not knowing about what's next, right? Can somebody tell me the name of the game which is shown in the picture in the presentation? I think a lot of us would have played this a few years back. Anyone? So this is the popular game Pokemon, right? You had to go about walking about around with your phone in order to find a Pokemon, and depending on the Pokemon that you found, you would get points, right? So this was very unpredictable very unpredictable facet which was being used. You had no idea of which Pokemon was where, but it was a very fun activity for a lot of people, and a lot of people around the world were engaged in this activity at a time. Okay, Dr. Harsh, just give me 2 minutes. Actually, there's somebody at the door. Give me just 30
No
seconds.
issues, no issues, no issues. No issues, Rupesh. Meanwhile, participants, what I'll request you to is it's a very interesting topic. Kindly participate and respond to the resource person. In my view, it's a very interesting one. Looking at how the gamification is being used in various domains, not only in marketing, but how to convert it. In fact, from the HR perspective, it is how to motivate people. And from if you look from operations perspective, it is increasing the efficiency and efficacies of the your workforce, and your reducing the mundaneness of the task involved. So, and even from the technical perspective, it is a great one because it involves applications of AR, VR, as well as your other technological aspects. So, in all, it's a very interesting topic to look at and explore, even as a standalone aspect as well. Not only in terms of metaverse, in terms of metaverse, it is highly critical or highly important, I'll say, because games or gamification is something which forms a big part of the metaverse domain. But apart from as a standalone domain as well, that is my view, one view, that gamification is something which can be of huge interest to the people in the technical domain as well as in the management domain.
Yeah,
So that's my
absolutely
take
right.
on this. Yeah, over to you, Rupesh.
Yeah, do I continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, okay. So we were looking at the fourth drive, which was unpredictability, and I was explaining about Pokemon game, which was hugely popular across the world, not just in a couple of countries. It was popular across multiple countries with a lot of users participating about going about finding Pokemon game. The core drive being engaged was the unpredictability, which helped users find Pokemon at the most strangest of places, and you had nowhere way of knowing that which Pokemon would you find there. So the next one is avoidance. I think this is a negative core drive in the sense you look at avoiding certain behaviors and modifying user behaviors by using facets such as punishment or a break in positive behavior is what leads to this. A typical example in this nowadays which is being used is the streak broken, where you have, if you go on a app or a game in metaverse also, if you log in daily, then you get a streak going, and if the day you don't log in is where you have a streak broken. So this is where a lot of people tend to go on, so that it helps you get daily active users increase in different facets of metaverse as compared to other ways. The next core type that we look at is scarcity. This is where you engage the reduce the availability to create scarcity, or the FOMO factor, the fear of missing out factor. Typical examples on this would be the invite-only model, which was used very successfully by mobile phones such as MI or even Samsung for their exclusive models, where they actually, even though they had stocks in their warehouses, they would create scarcity, artificial scarcity, and FOMO factor in their users by creating flash sales, so that actual sales would be much higher. This is a typical example which was also used in Gmail at the start, where you had an invite only model. Let's look at another example where scarcity led to a very successful app launch for Clubhouse, where they used the very similar model of invite only, where you had only two specific invites to send to your phones. And even to make it, even at the start, they made it even more specific by sending only on iPhones. The challenge here what to get to user base growth very quickly and establish your presence in the sea of social media apps. I think Clubhouse is a very successful app right now with over 10 million users worldwide. Key success factors was on obviously the invite only model, and the initial launch was for iPhone users only, which made it even more exclusive. Part of the waiting list also increases the FOMO factor. So these are a couple of very interesting use cases which you can look at if you're designing any games for uh, your your games in metaverse or your tasks in metaverse. The next core type that we look at is ownership. So ownership is all about owning it, protecting it, or even accumulating it. This is where you give options of customizing profiles or customizing avatars so that the user gets more and more engaged and more feels more in charge and more in ownership of their different avatars. A very simple example of this drive is why we used to collect stamps. Most of us would not have any relevance of why did we collect stamps as a kid, but it gave us a sense of ownership. That is why it was a very strong drive. It can be a very strong drive when used properly. Let's look at one example which is used in abroad as well as in India now, in how ownership can be used for a very peaceful and an environment friendly task. The challenge is to get people to relate to the social cause, and let's look at the different how did they go about it.
This project is very good because it is important to recycle and pay attention to the environment. I think I often have water bottles and I don't know where to put them. I throw them away. Instead, I can use them for my card and then pay for my commutes.
So if you look at this is a very interesting use case of gamification where they had the challenge of getting people to deposit their waste plastic bottles in a proper manner so that they can be recycled. This is where they use the gamification design to come up with this machine and install it at popular locations such as at metro cards, at even at train stations, and ask people to deposit the waste bottles and their cans in order to get credit in their travel cards. So the key success factors was obviously the ownership feeling that I have contributed to the environment. I in protecting the environment by crushing of plastic bottles, and it was at a convenient location to effect the change. Small incentives were also paid out so as to change the user behavior in a different manners. I think this example has now been copied across in a lot of metro stations and Indian railway stations where these machines have been installed at the various locations such as in Maharashtra and even in Delhi. Last core drive that we look at is accomplishment. Now, this is about achieving something exclusive. The challenge here is very important. This is the focus of most of the PBL or the point badger leadership frameworks, which is where you go about give a task to the user and they go about achieving it. Once accomplished, you give out certain rewards or certain points so as to engage the user. Let's look at a very strong example where a big technical or a disease problem which was not solved by scientists over decades was solved in a few months by gamers.
months into marketing season. University of Washington to the challenge to break down the blocks of the base fighters. And this was a competition. Most of the gamers want to get paid, so the higher the score. Trying to say, scientists solve other medical cases. Say the success of when patients get may expect more vaccine. Side, thanks so much, Rosa.
So if you look at this, this was a very complicated problem where the human and computer judgment together was solved, and it took gamers only 3 weeks to solve the problem. This was a very big achievement where a lot of the technical complexity of the problem for scientists alone was not engaging them enough, and it was not an accomplishment. But when the same challenge was presented to gamers, they took it up as a big challenge for themselves and achieved the task. The key success factor here was the being challenge for the users and the competition amongst users. So we have looked at this Octalysis framework of 8 core drives which drive gamification in the world today. Okay, and if you look at the right half of the right portion of the Octalysis framework, you look at the 3 core drives which are empowerment, social influence, and unpredictability, which are intrinsic to the human nature. Whereas if you look at these, this is where the motivation comes from within, and these are less tangible and difficult to measure. Whereas if you look at the left side of the Octalysis framework, the extensive factors are accomplishment, ownership, and scarcity. This is where the motivation comes from outside, and these are easier to influence and measure. But now we look at the top half of the Octalysis framework, which is what we call as the white hat motivation factors. These are accomplishment, meaning, and empowerment. These are the positive motivators, whereas the bottom half, if you look at scarcity, avoidance, and unpredictability, these are the black hat motivation or the negative motivators. As a general rule, you should look at using the white hat core drives compared to the black hat core drives in using any others. Coming to use of gamification Octalysis framework in Metaverse. So these are just a few examples of how the different kind of frameworks and the themes can be used for in Metaverse. Epic meaning has beginner's luck, free lunch, co-creationist. In accomplishment, you can see status points, badges, fixed action rewards, leaderboard, progress bar, quest list, desert oasis, high five, crowning, anticipation, and so on and so forth. These are just a few themes which we can use to engage the user's accomplishment core drive. Coming to the next, empowerment. These are milestone unlocks, real-time control, chain combos, dynamic feedback, boosters. These are the themes you can use for driving empowerment core drive for you in your task in Metaverse. The next one is ownership. In ownership, you can use exchangeable points, virtual goods, built from scratch, collection sets, Avatar. I think Avatar is one of the most commonly used gamification framework in Metaverse for driving the core drive of ownership. Then Protector Quest, Pet Companions, Observer Attachment. These are just few examples. If you look at social influence core drive, then friending, social treasures, the seesaw bump, the group quest, the trophy shelf, the brag button, the water cooler areas, mentorship, social prod. These are just few themes which we can use for Octalysis framework social influence core drive. Next is scarcity. If you look at appointment dynamics, price pacing, the bootleg quest, the last mile drive, countdown timers, torture breaks, and modes which are used to create scarcity in the metaverse for different kinds of tasks. Next is unpredictability. This is where you go on mini quest, the visual storytelling. Easter eggs is a very popular example where users can find, in unknown locations and very, useful items. Then random rewards, sudden rewards, oracle effect. These are just few of the themes you can use in by in the for metaverse for you for the unpredictability core drive of Talysis framework. The last is avoidance. You look at progress loss, rightful heritage, the streaking, the FOMO punch. These are just few themes which are used to drive avoidance core drive in metaverse. Now coming to the intrinsic extrinsic motivation that we spoke about, whereas the right hand side you're looking at intrinsic motivation, whereas the left hand side you're looking at extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation follows the thick think carrot and stick policy, whereas the intrinsic motivation you will look at primary design principles from gamification. In the extrinsic modification, once the reward is removed, the engagement is reduced. So it is very difficult to keep on giving rewards to keep on the users engaged. Whereas in intrinsic motivation, the motivation comes not from rewards or points, but from achieving the task and playing the game. In extrinsic motivation, even if you keep on giving the same rewards over time, the value of rewards diminish over time because people tend to become disassociated. Whereas in intrinsic motivation, they enjoy the game or the activity itself to drive and complete the task. In extrinsic motivation, you end up increasing cost, whereas in intrinsic motivation, you end up increasing engagement. So the focus of gamification always has to be intrinsic motivation and not extrinsic motivation. Let's look at a very how do you go about driving intrinsic motivation. So there's a self-determination theory by a very popular theory for intrinsic motivation, which is consists of 4 steps, which is knowing yourself and valuing yourself, planning, act, and experiencing outcome and learn. Let's look at each of these steps in more detail. Knowing yourself and valuing yourself. This is about knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your needs, and preferences. So, for designing any kind of task, any kind of activity in the metaverse, you need to know who are your users, what kind of strengths they have, what kind of options would they like, what kind of supports and expectations, and what is important for them to achieve that. The knowing yourself helps you. If you know your users, then only you will be able to value their strengths and the recognize and respect rights and responsibilities, which helps you design games and tasks in such a manner which are truly intrinsic in nature and do not need reward recognition rewards to continuously engage users. Next step is planning. Once you know your users expectation, it becomes very critical to plan and set goals, plan actions to meet those goals, and anticipate results. This is where you have to be creative and in various facets of design, and visually also rehearse the execution before actually beginning the execution. The next step is to act. This is where you take risks, you communicate, you negotiate and deal and access the resources and support to design the task. This is where you negotiate with different kind of users, the different kind of your stakeholders to deal with conflict and criticism. But you have to be persistent in getting what you believe is truly right as per the gamification theory. The last part of this is experiencing outcomes and learning. It is not just about completing and designing the task and saying you're done with it. You have to obviously compare outcomes to the actual expected outcome and then compare performance to the expected performance. This is where you make adjustments, and then if you're not realizing success, you have to do suitable modifications. This is a very critical. These are the 4 very critical components of the self-determination theory. And let's now look at this. How do these 4 components come together to complete the self-determination theory? The first step is obviously knowing yourself. Then you do go about the planning. This is where you act, and then your experience outcome. Along with the environment, this becomes a self-fulfilling theory in order to achieve the various tasks for you. So this is the cyclical model of self-determination. So people, if you it'll help you get your users into the high self-determination mode, and people who are in high in self-determination tend to have high self-motivation, believe they have control over their own lives, and base their action on their own goals and behaviors. They take responsibility for their behaviors, even if it leads to failures and or successes. So now that we have looked at the intrinsic motivation theory, let's look at the gamification flow. How can we use the motivation theory to engage users into the different gamification flow? If you look at this diagram, there is a simple 2 by 2 diagram of skill versus challenge. At the start of the flow, you have to have a balance of challenge and skill. In the initial piece, you have to make it easy for the users because the users are not conversant with your games, with your metaverse actions. So you have to make it easy for the users to get on without a lot of complications. But at the same time, you have to set them clear tasks and clear goals, and also ensure they are getting clear feedback. Otherwise, if the challenge is too high, it will lead to frustration and anxiety. Whereas if the challenge is too low as compared to the skill, it will lead to boredom. Only if the mix is right will you have users who are fully engaged, and they will be interested on keep on playing and completing the tasks. It will lead to an immersive experiences and distortion of time for the users, leading to high daily returns. So we have completed almost half of the pieces in our today's presentation. The next piece that we look at is the different gamification elements and the design framework. Before we proceed further, anybody has any questions on the piece that we've covered?
I would request the participants to kindly respond if you have any questions.
Fine. If you have any queries, please do post them in the chat. I will continue from here.
Yes, sir.
So, looking at gamification elements and design framework. So, there are four elements of games that most people tend to relate to. In order to design games, you need to have some kind of game goals. You need to have some kind of rules. You need to have some kind of challenge and conflict for achieving the goals. And you need to have a feedback mechanism. So along with the gamification elements, you have the gamification components. So you need to have tasks for your users, and basis the task, you assign certain points for the task whenever the tasks are being completed, and you need to have certain rewards, right? Using the total point to award rewards. The rewards and the tasks can be combined to form streaks, which help you identify consistent behaviors to award the streaks. The next component that tend to use most is badges, where we use identify the level of total point toward badges for differentiating of users. The last component is leaderboards. You look at total points and badges for running leaderboards to identify winners and create competitions. This is one of the most commonly used framework especially in sales departments, for creating of leaderboards and points and rewards for driving sales. You can also look at further components such as avatars, skins, etc., to drive more and more engagement with your users. Next, we will look at a framework for implementing the game design. This is one of the most important slides for today, wherein you can actually look at a framework for implementing the game design in your tasks. So to begin with, you need to have a business objective definition, which determines the purpose of gamification in Metaverse. It identifies the product and service to be gamified, and this is where you typically have a product manager's job, who will go about doing this task and has the end-to-end vision in his mind before proceeding further. Once the business objectives are defined, that is when you move on to a game model and characteristics definition. In this, the key activities are determining the type of game to be utilized, identifying suitable game characteristics, and this is a task for a project manager to identify the different activities. The next step is development methodology and software tools. This is where you would need an IT manager who will help you determine the software development process and identify the suitable tools for this process, in terms of which will help you achieve the required game model and characteristics definition as per the business objectives. The next step is game design and software development. This is where you would need your developers, testers, and web designers who will build design as per the testing plan, and determine the process monitoring schedule and do the entire development. Last step is the gamification quality control and feedback, which is done by an analytics manager who will build quality standards and evaluate the current state for implementing the required changes, which helps you end to and monitor the end-to-end gamification framework. Moving on towards the last part of our agenda today, which is the gamification around us and the future trends and pitfalls. So if you look at it, I think most of us use Flipkart and Amazon apps, right? So we'll look at Flipkart's recent example of gamification, how they used gamification in a broad manner. So if you look at, they have a example of My Points. They have tasks to be collected, to be completed in a given time frame. They have a different kind of rewards, which is super coins mostly, and they have different pieces. So they also have certain leaderboards which helps you get see where what is your current standings. They have different kind of rewards in the leaderboards apart from the points and the coins. And they also use social influence to compare your ranks versus vis-a-vis your peers in order to achieve this. These are just a few examples of how Flipkart is a simple examples of how Flipkart is using the different kind of core drives of competition to drive user engagement for their apps. They also provide leaderboard FAQs and how to do processes in order to show the users how it works and proceed with the different tasks. Now, moving forward, the completion of tasks, and once you complete a task, you get games points for the task. This is a very simple example of achievement code drive being engaged here for the users in order to complete the task. But if you look at it, what are the different okay, let me just complete this. So the value for the points is also shown to the user so that he knows it the points are not just useless. There is a monetary value or some kind of a value which can be redeemed from the points that you collected, and it also gives you a history of recent transactions, right? So they also use the streak phenomena to continuously engage the users on a day-to-day basis and keep making sure that the users are coming back on a daily basis on their apps. So it also gives you a complete details of how it works so that the users are able to completely, are fully engaged and they don't get bored or feel it is too complicated to figure out how it works. So this is where they use the gamification frameworks. They also use the core drive of accomplishment and avoidance in streaks example to ensure that the users are fully engaged. Now let's look at one of the bigger examples that they use at the end of the year, which is the Christmas tree. This was very hugely successful and very popular amongst a lot of players whoever used Flipkart. I think a lot of us would have also used it. This was launched last in December 21, where they gave a concept of a Christmas tree and gave us a lot of asked the users to get a lot of rewards while playing the game. Now, if you look at the starting screens of this is where it is very simple. They have put up a low complexity, low skill to ensure that the users, while entering the game, they are fully engaged. They don't feel it is too complicated or what do I have to do in this task, right? So they also provided points to start, and they gave users free starting points to engage to ensure that the user are engaged and they don't have to figure out how to get the starting points. Also give you clear instructions in order to ensure that the user did not have to look around for going around what kind of task do they have to complete. So once the users started completing their task, you also gave them a level up. Now this is where you gave an accomplishment code drive in terms of engaging the users. And also it gave you a clear tracking of progress so that the users are not worried about it. This is where once your initial level is completed, you give your seed has sprouted, that now you're becoming a owner of a tree. So that is where they use the core drive of ownership, and now it is your duty to water your tree on a daily basis. So this ensured a lot of users came back on a daily basis just to ensure that the tree did not dry off, and they came back daily on the app to engage this. And they also used the rewards for the task completion in order to engage users. So how do you go to rewards? Was very simple. They gave you certain tasks and ensured that the tasks were done in order to get the rewards. So As and when the users used to go on completing the different tasks, they got points for leveling up, and they got rewards for leveling up. So the tasks were given initially of medium complexity and medium skill, but as on you progressed in levels, that is where your task became harder and harder. But they also gave you a timeline for completion so that the user were well aware that this is a limited time event, creating scarcity and FOMO factor. Also, free points were given in the app, wherein if you did not log in within the next hours of time, then the free points used to expire. This is the core drive of avoidance being used in the app to ensure continuous and daily user engagement. There were rewards for leveling up and the rewards for completing the different tasks. This is where the mystery rewards of core drive of unpredictability was engaged on leveling up, because the user did not have a clear visibility of what was the reward when they leveled up a certain level. This is one of the key factors if you look at what they were actually trying to do. So far, what you looked in the above slides, in these slides, this was just about playing a game. You had a task of watering a tree, but that was not what Flipkart's objective was, right? Flipkart's objective was not to get you to play the game or play, water a tree, digital tree for that matter. It did not achieve anything. Their actual objective was to complete the task, and to complete the task, you got rewards, but there were a different kind of rewards. So if you we'll see that in the next slides. So if you see, if you as you level up, your prices were increasing, and locked rewards incentivize players to continue playing. But these are the main objectives of Flipkart for the different tasks that were being given. So if you look at it, they were giving tasks such as of wish listing of your favorite smart TVs, wish listing of your favorite laptops, wish- adding of products from the grooming range, adding of deals, checking out the deals on fashion brands. This is where the Flipkart objectives was to actually get users to buy a TV, to buy a laptop, or to buy clothes, whereas and to watch ads. This was a very clever gamification methodology which Flipkart used, in which the users thought they were playing games, they were completing tasks in daily challenges and weekly challenges. But whereas the ultimate objective from Flipkart was also to, while obviously to increase sales, but it was also to collect data from their wish list, so that they get to know their customer profiles, and it also helps you to plan inventories so that in case of sales coming up, what kind of users are likely to buy what all brands and what all objects. So this was a very successful program led by Flipkart in gamification. There are also a few other gamification models which Flipkart is using. If you look at their Solve the Crime Mystery series, this is very interesting because they actually gave control to the users over the web series in determining the outcome. So the objective of Flipkart here was very interesting here. The next example that we will look at is the gamification of Amazon, which gamification which Amazon uses in quiz on their Amazon products. So if you see, Amazon gives you a very interesting sort of question such as how many yoga mats are being sold in last year. But apart from that, they also started promoting their products such as Amazon Mini TV and Mini TV host creations. So it helped the reward for the users was to take participate into different kind of lucky draws and get get to win small tokens. The end objective which Flipkart was trying to achieve was to educate users on product features, whereas the gamification framework they used was quizzing, which is a very one of the more popular frameworks. The most of the users tend to think that we are playing a quiz, whereas it is actually about educating users on the product features. I think a lot of these days, even a brand quiz on Amazon products are continuously being played, whether it's Pediasure, whether it's or different kind of products which offer a different lucky draws and as products, wherein you can go and answer different questions on the brands. Now, this is a very interesting example because look, you would not typically you would end up either playing as an advertisement, right? Pediasure would have to advertise that my product provides bone growth and muscle strength, which would not be mostly be recorded in the minds of the users. But when they're playing this as a quiz, that is when they are very clear that okay, what are the benefits? This is the benefit. This is what I need to focus on. So now, inadvertently, they have ensured that the user knows that Pediasure provides bone growth and muscle strength, which would not have been so simple to record if gone through the traditional methods of advertisement. Let's look at another example of Asian Paints, which uses MyGeo platform for engagement of users. This is another very interesting example, because if you look at paint as a product, most of the way the paints companies go is going on a TV advertisement or doing some kind of brochures for their users. But this is a very interesting phenomena where they came up with a crossword, with a word search puzzle for finding different words related to paints, such as paint and budget and economy. So word search games were there, quiz on videos were there, and estimate the budget game was there. Here, the brand objective was to engage users, educate users on their product features, and obviously, which ultimately led to increase in sales and revenue for Asian Paints on MyGeo. Let's look at one more very popular example of gamification of how to teach your kids a second language. I think most of the parents today are wanting to teach a second language to the kids, but it is very, very difficult in engaging kids onto a new language. This is where Duolingo, a very popular app for teaching language to kids.
Everybody agrees. Duolingo is a great way to learn a language. It's addictive because languages are split into bite-sized skills that feel like games. You lose a life when you get something wrong, and you earn points when you complete a lesson. Duolingo teaches you to read, write, listen, and speak, and it's extremely effective. In fact, an independent study found that 34 hours on Duolingo are equal to a whole university semester. A semester of knowledge that you can fit into your breaks, commutes, and moments spent waiting in line. Language, free at last.
So if you look at this, a very interesting example of Duolingo, how it uses gamification for simplifying the task of teaching us learning a second language. And also the key pieces, if you look at this in this video, was that 34 hours on just Duolingo app is equivalent to almost a semester in a university. Whereas the 34 hours can be very user friendly. The user can determine how much time they spend at a time and what kind of time do they want to spend. Now let's look at a few do's and don'ts in gamification. So in terms of do's, you should always align your gamification with objectives. Just for the sake of doing gamification, just for the sake of gamification is never the correct way to go about it. And you obviously has to ensure you don't confuse the learner and your users. You have to always provide clear instructions to complete the game, and don't make rewards as the main theme. Because if you tend to make rewards as the main theme, then you'll have to keep on providing more and more rewards, which can lead to more costs, or over a period of time, also the rewards will lose their value and your users will become disengaged. You should always allow users to choose their path to reach their game objectives. This gives them a sense of ownership, a sense of creativity, and not that they are being asked to follow a specific route. This is where you should not try to manipulate the game, and you should always challenge the users to achieve the game. We had a look at the user engagement flow, where you have to ensure that the mix of skill and challenge, the balance of skill and challenge, is always optimum. For the beginner level of users, you need to have low skill and low challenge, whereas for the full engaged users, you can have a high skill and high challenge kind of combination. You need to always focus on intrinsic motivation and ensure you don't give up, because otherwise the users will become disengaged and not complete the task that they're given. Now let's look at a few reasons for gamification failures. One of the most common reason is the poor design, which focuses only on points, leadership, and badges. You need to ensure that you're focusing on intrinsic motivation, or you're focusing on the Octalysis framework core drives in order to drive engagement with your users. You need to ensure that the rewards are different for different levels and they are actually meaningful and not underwhelming for the users. You need to have a limited, you need to ensure that the customizations are as per the user asks and in accordance with the different kind of varieties required. You should not be limiting your user customization, treating a lot of users as similar, otherwise they will become disengaged. And also you need to ensure that gamification is done in entire end-to-end journey. It is not just the one part of journey which becomes gamified and the rest of the pieces are left as it is. This will lead to, again, poor user engagement, and ultimately user drop-offs. Need to have teamwork, because without teamwork you will not be able to achieve the required sources, and one should not achieve that gamification as quick fix. It is a constant journey. You have to keep on working at it, keep on improving, taking feedback and monitoring the current outcomes to ensure that you're achieving the desired results. Let's look at a few growth drivers in the gamification market. I think one of the most biggest piece here is the rapid growth of smartphones and internet services, and now metaverse is coming up, right? The COVID for 19 further exacerbated the time invested in internet and smart devices. Before lockdown, obviously users did not spend so much time, but during the lockdown, and a very additional huge amount of time was spent on the smartphones and internet services. The next level of gaming, which is metaverse, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, are all coming in to take the gamification to next level. There's a quick slide in terms of the number of smartphones which are already crossed almost 3.5 billion users in 2020 itself. So, what does the future of gamification hold for us? It is mobile first gamified solutions which will go first. It is the immersive technologies such as metaverse, AR, VR, MR, or even XR which will lead the way forward in gamification. The artificial intelligence integration with gamified solutions is the way to go forward for all kind of designs. And Internet of Things will also now come up into play, which will sync with gamification to make the users experience much more immersive and time consuming. Personalization will only increase. Currently the games are not so much personalized, but with the huge amounts of data being made available to game designers and game developers, the personalization will only increase in future in gamification. So let's look at a very interesting example which Walmart is working on in terms of retail shopping. There's a very interesting video which combines the facets of gamification as well as the different facets of metaverse in terms of driving shopping experience for their users. So to begin with, if you look at it, it is just the user has just logged in. He's given clear instructions on how to, reach the different objects. What does he need to do to grab objects, and how does he start the button experience for it.
Howdy! Thanks for visiting Walmart. I will be your shopping assistant module today, but you can call me Sam for short. Okay, let's get started. I have your shopping list loaded up, and I'm tracking your oil change so I can let you know as soon as it's done.
So if you notice a couple of things, the shopping list was provided by the user, and all the list items in the shopping list were auto populated in the cart. The user did not have to go about collecting those various items, but it can still go and collect more items if required from the shopping list or otherwise. And also, the another key point was it was not just about the shopping experience. It was also about they told that we have done the oil change request for your car, which is in the parking lot. Sorry.
Howdy! Thanks for visiting Walmart. I will be your shopping assistant module today, but you can call me Sam for short. Okay, let's get started. I have your shopping list loaded up, and I'm tracking your oil change so I can let you know as soon as it's done. You see the tomato sauce on your left? Go ahead and grab that and then place it in your cart. Great. Looks like you need a good wine pairing. Take a look to your right. Your age has already been pre-verified through your profile, so no need to wait for an ID check. Just place the item in your cart whenever you're ready.
So there are two important points to note here. This is where the virtual shopping assistant module, or SAM as they call it, it helped you did a upsell of, along with the tomato puree shopping, it helped the user to influence the user to do a wine shopping. And when the user actually did some wine shopping, it auto verified that the user did not was age above a certain limits and eligible to purchase the wine.
I'm getting a notification from your connected smart fridge. It looks like you already have a full gallon of milk at home. Should we put this one back?
So this is where very interesting. If you see the smart analytics and the IoT of things, the Walmart, if you have a smart refrigerator which tells you what kind of items you have at home, the shopping assistant will be able to link up with your smart fridge and tell you that there are certain things at home and they should not be part of your shopping list.
Hey, good news. Your oil change is done. Your vehicle will be ready at the Tire and Lube Express. I've added the service charge to your cart. Now for the fun stuff. To electronics. You definitely saved the best for last. This TV has great reviews on Walmart.com. Add it to your cart, and I'll have it brought to the front for you. Need any accessories? Here are some options on Jet.com.
So this was an example of a cross sell where, along with the TV, it helped you buy accessories from a third party provider, Jet.com, along with the TV purchase. So this is where the retail shopping experience in Metaverse is going to go towards, which uses different facets such as upsell, cross sell, and user engagement. Sorry, let's start it again. Yeah, we were on this slide.
Just done. Need any accessories? Here are some options on Jet.com. Looks like that's everything on your list. Are you ready to check out with Walmart Pay? I'll have the TV brought out to your car. Thanks for shopping at Walmart. Have a great day.
So this was a very interesting example of shopping in the metaverse, where Walmart is developing such kind of a framework that they will be able to just experience the entire thing with a headgear, and they don't need to have the detail check. All the displays and everything will be done in the metaverse itself. So any queries so far?
Audience, any queries? Participants? Any query from your side?
Okay. So I'll now we'll proceed forward. We are looking at what is the future hold for us. We looked at a very interesting use case of Walmart, but this is another video by CG Bros in terms of how far can we take metaverse and gamification.
Good job. Excellent. Well done.
So if you look at this video, this to start with, they have modified the gamified in metaverse the exercise part. The user was actually made to feel he was flying through the skies, whereas he was actually doing plank exercises in order to strengthen his core. Now he's looking at the simple task of making his food, and let's just look at how making the simple task of cutting cucumbers and making food is gamified in metaverse. Oh, sorry.
Life is a journey, and in this journey, we all want to do more, experience more, feel more, and live with no boundaries. And why shouldn't we? Sight System presents Sightseeing.
Patrick. Patrick.
Oh, hi. Hi, Daphne. How are you? Sorry. You look great.
Thank you. Love your jacket.
Thanks. It's a sports jacket, so that's official. But,
What do you mean?
sorry.
What's the difference between a sports jacket and a normal jacket?
I guess a sports jacket is for people who want to look good even when they're chased by the police. Anyway, I hope you're hungry. This
Yeah.
place has the best burgers in there.
Oh, actually, I'm vegetarian.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Because you didn't say it in the profile, so.
Well, I don't like everything.
Do you want to go somewhere else?
No. It's okay. I'll find something.
Well, how about a glass of wine for starters?
Yeah.
So, are there any other things in your profile that you didn't write about that I should know, or are you scared of talking by yourself in the city?
Not really. Besides, I'm about to hit level 5 American Master.
Pretty impressive.
What is scary though? On my last trip, my sight crashed. So scary. I didn't see anything. I couldn't find my way home.
Sight doesn't crash.
Oh, it did. I was totally lost. I didn't see anything.
That doesn't happen since our last patch.
Do you work there or something? Really?
Yeah,
Wow. What do you do there?
nothing serious. I'm just a simple.
Actually, I read about your company in the news. Is it true that you guys influence stuff and manipulate people's sight?
But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to be on such a cool road.
You really get me.
You know, I can tell what you're thinking.
Really. But
Well, finished or just? What happened to the gym? How about we go to my place for a nightcap?
well, if you're so good at reading my mind, you should know what I'm going to say.
So if you look at this, it is actually very interesting the kind of scenario these guys have painted out, where you use metaverse and gamification theories for a lot of tasks, starting with exercise, for cooking of food, and even with selection of venues, selection of food, and for that matter, even the kind of choices and words that he's speaking with his date is being controlled by the gamification framework. So this is very interesting use case in terms of probably will not get there in a near future, but we can definitely take a lot of learnings from this video in terms of how to go about doing different tasks and mundane tasks into gamification for the users. So I think we are about to wrap it up. So we'll look at any questions in case of this presentation has been too difficult of a level, or otherwise even. Open to any queries if anybody has any queries.
Sir, your mic is muted, sir.
Any queries by anyone? Queries by anyone, please? Participants, if you have any queries. Again, a very interesting topic and a presentation by Mr. Roopesh. Yeah, Nitya ma'am, any queries?
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah.
How to gamify
Can
learning
you
and
open your
development?
please camera? Yeah, ma'am. Ah, ma'am, please.
So, how to gamify learning and development in the metaverse?
Hello.
Yeah, madam is asking, Rupesh, how can you gamify the learning and training, right, madam? Learning and training in
Yes, ma'am.
metaverse, right?
How to gamify
Hello.
learning and
Am I
development
audible?
in the metaverse?
Yeah, Rupesh. Rupesh, hello. See, ma'am, he gave one of the example.
So thank you for the question, Nitya. Are you able to hear me, because I'm not able to hear you guys.
No,
I
we are
can
able
see
to
the
hear you.
question
We
in
are able to hear you.
the chat. If you are able to hear me, okay, cool. You're able to hear me. Okay. So going about of gamification in learning and development is one of the biggest use cases that a lot of companies are today working on. So you need to, like I said, in the Optalysis framework, you need to focus on identifying what kind of a use case are you looking at, right? Let's say you're looking at a sales kind of a team for some learning program and development program for the sales team. So for you need to identify what kind of a core drive would engage these users. Would it be avoidance? Would it be accomplishment? Would it be and also it's not mandatory that you need to choose only one, right? You can choose a mix of different core drives and look to engage, use the intrinsic motivation to design the learning program in such a manner that the users are engaged in the program. So I think in yesterday's session we had a look at the Samsung program and also the universal scene design which was used, right? So they can be equally be used in the learning and development platforms for metaverse for designing different kind of training programs. I hope that answers the query. Uh,
Okay, so thank you, sir.
yeah,
Thank
now
you so much.
I'm able to hear. Any other query, or do we proceed? We'll just take 5 more minutes. I think I said that there would be a prize at the end of the presentation for you guys. So, if there's any other query, or do I proceed?
I think you can proceed, Rupesh.
Yeah. So I think we all looked at the analysis framework. Frankly, I've found it very useful in my in my corporate tasks for achieving the different kind of product and different kind of launches in metaverse that Geo is working on. So this is a very popular, Udemy gamification course link by Mr. Yukai Chow, who's the originator for the original author for the Octalysis framework. This course is worth 7,500. And to be honest, since you guys have been so kindly, fully listening to me, you all of you can, this is a very highly rated course, almost 4.5 rating for more than 20,000 students. This course is now going to be free for all of you. I'm giving this link. Please go on this link, and if you go on this link and register for yourself, this same course worth 7,500 rupees is free for all of you. Whoever goes on this link and register, he can go through this Octalysis framework course for free. I hope
So
it will be useful.
can we have this link in the chat box?
Yeah. I'll surely paste it across on the chat box. I think I'm done from my side, Dr. Harsh. If any other queries or any other actions?
Yeah, so any other queries further from the participants? Sharan sir, anyone else? Any other queries? Sanjay sir, Suganti ma'am, Swayam Prabha ma'am, any queries, any questions? Dr. Pallavi?
Actually, it's a good session. There's a lot of new learning. That's what we are actually wondering. So many things are there in this metaverse. Actually, I've not seen all these PPTs before, the common platforms. So this is going to be a very special program, and this gamification also. This is the first time it has been introduced to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your kind words, ma'am. In fact, gamification is very hot topic right now in the industry. There are enterprise gamification. Enterprise level gamification is happening nowadays. So it's a really hot topic.
So just to give you a brief background, Geo is especially for its sales team. We are now moving towards a gamification framework of achieving sales targets via gamification. Whereas the earlier approach was very simple, that you have to achieve an X target in the month. Let's say that you have to achieve a daily productivity of probably 5 or 10, and you have to achieve a target of 300. Now we are changing this framework around into a gamification. So your daily sales. So what happens is, a lot of people, depending on the location, certain people make more sales on weekdays. Certain people, depending on the products they're selling, they'll sell on weekends. Then certain people, they sell big ticket items. Certain people sell more, but they sell small ticket items, right? They sell smaller plans and they sell to more people. Whereas certain people, they try and sell higher ARPU, larger plans. So what we have done is, we have coming up with a gamification framework which will award points as per the sale value and the sale frequency. So depending on those 2 points, on those two factors, along with the range of obviously the whole quantum of sales, each sales guy will get a different kind of points. And at the end of the month, they'll be sent into a leadership framework, and the leaders will get even more reports apart from the points. One, the individual users, depending on the sales they make, they can obviously encash their points, but they will also be, if they're on top of the leaderboards, they'll also get over and above the different reward points. So that helps us, is going to help us Geo simplify a total, the annual exercise of reward and recognition for the salesman, that we are turning around and making into a monthly competition exercise, which will be driven by the gamification framework.
So any other things? So thank you,
So,
Roopesh. That
just
was
a
really
small
a
note.
wonderful and a very interesting and informative session.
Yeah, just one small note. I think I covered the metaverse piece. So Mr. Yukai Cho, he's working on MetaBlocks, a real estate game on this, and he has given us a 3-part white paper, which he has given complete details in terms of how to go about designing the game end to end for the metaverse. Okay, I think it was not sufficient to cover that in probably 1 or 2 sessions. It will require a much larger time. But if you do have time, please do go through this white paper. It has given a lot of complete details in terms of how to go about approaches, what kind of different solutions do you take, how do you go about pricing of the different factors. A very interesting white paper. I'll share this link across in the chats around. So thank you. I think the game is never over, as we say, and we all play the game of life.